He's the most prolific songwriter in the history of the modern church, and he is my guest today for one of the most special conversations to date on this podcast. Get ready for my friend Chris Tomlin. Make sure to leave me a 5-star review, write something nice about the show, and get ready for another great episode of 1 Degree of Andy.
Thank you all for coming out. Good night.
I'm Andy Chrisman, and I'm the host of the 1 Degree of Andy podcast. In my nearly 40 years on the road touring in Christian music with the group For Him, I've met a lot of amazing people who have some remarkable stories to tell. From CCM artists to legendary producers and industry executives to comedians, actors, and authors. I've got a Rolodex full of names that you'll recognize, men and women who have made us sing, laugh, and cry through the years. And just like you and me, they've had their faith tested along the way. So join me each and every week for stories of hope, significance, and a walk down memory lane. This is the 1 Degree of Andy podcast.
Man, I'm so excited about doing this.
Really?
I can't tell you. I mean, I can't tell. I've probably been looking forward to this more than anything I've gotten to do in a long time because I have loved your podcast. I started listening to it, and I think I've listened to almost every single episode. And
No way.
Yeah,
Dude,
I really
appreciate
like
that.
it.
Thank
I really
you.
like it. What you've done, and it's so cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. It's fun for me to reconnect with so many people I've met along the way. And
Yeah, it's really, and I just learned so much because I had so many people that I've always looked up to when I was younger, and
mhm.
hearing their stories is like just awesome. And I just love the way you're such a good interviewer, man. It's like
Oh,
you did a great job at it.
man,
So
I'm blushing. Thank you.
I've been really looking forward to it, honestly. And I told my team, I was like, I want to. Somehow somebody mentioned to me about it, and I. And so I started listening to it, and I sent a thing to my team. I was like, I'd love to talk to Andy someday. So
Wow. Well, that's great, man. Is there one, is there any episode that you can think of as your favorite that you've listened to?
well, a couple off the top of my were John Schlitt, because
Oh, yeah.
I loved Petru, and I mean that was my first entry to Christian music. So
Uh-huh.
that was like, oh my gosh, that was just cool. And like hearing that, and I didn't know he was in these early rock bands and things like that. So I
Yeah.
went to
Yeah.
started listening to those. It was
It's
like,
good, isn't it? And
yeah,
he's just good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
And that
never
whole
heard of it.
thing about him working in a mine
Yeah,
in Colorado, I think, right? Just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what?
Yes, yeah, and so I ate that up, and then I like the Russ Tafflin one
Yeah.
as well. I didn't know his story, like his just like a hardship of him growing up, and
Hmm.
the I was like, wow, I didn't know any of that, but I mean, when I was a kid, my dad, it was the only song he played in the house was "Praise the Lord" by the Imperials.
Oh, man.
It's all I ever heard. That song over and
It's a good
over
one.
over and over.
Yeah.
And so hearing Russ, that was just cool for me. Anyway.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, me too. That was a big song for me. I don't know, I probably got a decade on you,
Yeah.
age-wise, but that was a song that one of the first albums I ever bought was that Imperials record that had that song on it, and just remembering, man, this is something different. This is not,
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like this before. And of course, Russ, there's so much of his voice that just takes you to another place.
Right. Yeah. It was so good. So I loved them. And I could go down the list. There's so many, you've done an amazing job. So many good ones. And
Oh, thanks. Well, let's talk
just,
about you. We're here to talk about you, and
I don't know about
obviously
that.
you've got new music, and you're just everywhere, bro. Like you're one of the busiest dudes in the history of Christian music, and I want to get to all that. I want to get to your story. Just kind of,
Yeah.
kind of, you've listened to enough of these
Yeah.
episodes. It's okay if we wander a little bit and just talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I definitely want to, I'd love to just get your journey and what got you into this world that we all live in.
Yeah. So I grew up in East Texas, which is real interesting, after listening to your podcast a lot.
Hmm.
It's funny, and I don't know how much of it rubbed off on me just in like in the spiritual world, but I grew up in Grand Saline, Texas, which
Yeah.
is right down from Garden Valley, Lindale. And with from the Keith Green and in second chapter of Acts and all those ministries, and when I was a really little kid, I can remember my dad going to this little place in my town called the Glory Dome, and it was this little like tin dome, and it was tiny, and Keith Green would come play there,
Wow.
and and my dad would go listen to him. I didn't know who that was. I mean, I was too little, but it was just so I think about my roots of where I come from, even though I didn't know any of those people at the time. But I grew up in a small little town in outside of Tyler, and my dad taught me to play guitar when I was a kid, and he loved country music. That's what he loved. He loved Willie and Merle and
Yep.
Waylon and Johnny, and that was all my early talent shows were Willie Nelson, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and that was my first song, and all the things. And
Well, yeah, you grew up in Texas. I mean, that's who you're going to listen to. And
yes,
that's my
yeah,
daddy. My dad is the same way. I mean, Charlie Pride and Charlie Rich and yeah, Waylon and Willie
yes.
and all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that was going on in my house too.
That,
Back my dad had a shed out in the backyard, his tool shed, and I realize now, as I'm as old as he was when I have those memories that was his escape. That was his little place. He could kind of get out and get alone, and my mom wouldn't bother him, and we wouldn't go
yeah,
out there and bother him because he'd put us to work. And but I could just
yes.
hear that country music coming out really
Uh,
loud out of his workshop.
it was country music all the time, and so taught me to play guitar, and there was a guy in my church. His name was David. David Crane was his name, and he traveled and he did these like weekend revivals, church revivals, and he was a music guy. And I didn't know what the terms was, but he came out of my church. He was about my dad's age, and I just thought he was the coolest guy because he would go and he would play music and he'd preach at the same time, and he did all these things himself. And I was like, God, he's so cool. And then one day he comes to my house. He said, "Hey, Chris, I talked to your dad. I was a senior in high school." He said, "I talked to your dad, and he said it's okay if you did this." He said, I'm driving down to Texarkana, and he said, I've got a youth concert tonight. I'm doing a youth group. I want to know if you want to come with me and set up the keyboard and and you can sell the tapes in the back." And I was like, all right. So I was fired up. And so we drove 3 hour drive the whole time, just talked. And, I looked up to him a lot, and he had just all the gifts. He's a great singer, really funny, great preacher, all the things. And middle of the concert, I set up all his stuff, and I'm in the back. In the middle of the concert, it's about 500 kids. So you got to understand, like my town that's half the size of my town is in this place, and this was huge to me. And I'm in the back, and he says, "I got a good friend, Chris. He came with me tonight. He's from my hometown, and he's going to come up here and do the concert for you guys for a little bit." And I thought, what? I mean, I was like, we have driven 3 hours. You did not say a word of this.
Were you prepared? I mean, like, did you
No,
have enough? Like,
completely. Not. I didn't know. I no, I didn't. I did not know what to do. And I and so I just and all the kids are looking back, staring at me, and I'm just like, okay. So I walked up there. He knew I played at the church. I
yeah,
played some songs at the church, and in the youth group I'd play. And so I walked up there and I had written a couple songs, and I mean Andy was so terrible. I mean, I played two songs and I could just tell I didn't get off the stage, and I was getting those like sympathy claps, And as I got off the stage, I
yeah.
ran to the back and back to the tapes. And afterwards, this youth pastor came up to me and he said, he was in the crowd. He goes, "Man, Chris, I love what you did." And he goes, that was so good. Would you come play this at my church this summer? We're doing a youth week at this church, at my church, this little small church." And Andy, I thought to myself, when I tell the story, I thought to myself, what must the music at your church be like that you heard me and you
Yeah.
thought, I want you to come. And so I was just like, okay. I said yes. And I got home and I was thinking, I'm in high school, I got home and I was thinking, oh my goodness, I've committed to do this youth week. And I don't have any songs, and I don't know how to do this. And so I just start, oh, how's this going to go?
How old were
And
you?
I was 17.
Okay.
And so I get a call about a month before the event, and it's a deep voice, really deep voice. His name is James. And he says, "Hello, my name is James." I was like, "Hey, James, it's Chris." He's like, "Yes, Chris." He goes, "I'm speaking at this youth week. I'm calling you because I got your number because you are the person who is doing the music for this. And the reason I'm calling you is I'm the speaker, and I've never heard of you before. And I was like, well, James, the reason you never heard of me is I've never done this. And he's like, and he just kind of paused on the phone. He goes, I said, I've never done this. And he's like, okay. He goes, well, what kind of music do you play? I was like, well, James, I know about 3 songs. And that is like how, and this is how naive you are, right? I just thought, I was just telling the truth. I was like, I know about 3 songs. And he's like, okay. He goes, well, it was just, I look back now, it's all God's thing. It's all God doing his thing, because he's like, well, because any other person who called me, I don't know where my trajectory would have gone. But he's like, well, you're going to need to learn some music, and I'm going to send you some music in the mail. And I was like, okay. So he sends me these early CDs and tapes from this ministry called Choice, which you will know, and from Baylor University. And it's got a name called Louis Giglio on it. It's produced by Louis Giglio. And I was like,
wow,
that's an interesting name. And I thought that's a funny name. And I was just looking at these tapes, and I started learning these little songs. And they were all these early Vineyard, Maranatha, I Love You, Lord, Lord, You're More Precious Than Silver. And so it was like those recordings of those early choruses. And I was like, this is amazing. I was just like loving this. And so I wrote every song I took those tapes, and I wrote every song on a note card and every lyric on a note card, and I figured out the chords, wrote the chords, and I came with a stack of note cards to this youth crusade about this deep. And I walked on stage with just about kids all my age. And when I say I didn't know what I was doing, I had no idea. I just had my guitar, and I would go early and I would set up the note cards on the stage in the order I was going to do the songs. And I just never, and I walked up to the mic. I never looked at anybody. I never said hello. I just walked to the mic and just kind of stared down at those note cards and just played these little choruses and sing these little choruses. And I tell that story because at the end of the week, James comes to me and he says, hey, man, and every night he'd give me little pointers, hey, you should do this. You think about this. This is how you lead and kind of thing. He goes, in the week, he said, I want you to know 2 things. I was like, yeah. He goes, I've been praying for you this week, and I want you to know 2 things. I was like, okay. He goes, one is you have no idea what you're doing. And I was like, I couldn't believe he was that straight, because you have no idea what you're doing. He goes, and secondly, he said, you have no idea how God is going to use your music all over the world.
Wow.
And I remember looking at him, and I was thinking, and I was honestly thinking, I don't have any music. I don't know what you're talking about. You saw me. I'm reading note cards at some of the people's songs, all these early choruses. And he put his hand on he goes, I've been praying for you. He said, I feel like God's been speaking to me. You're going to write songs one day, and the world's going to sing those songs. And he goes, and he put his hand on my head, and he right there, he just looked straight in my eyes. And I didn't grow up in a church where you do this, and I grew up in the same church you did. I kind of heard your story. And put his hand on my head, and he said, God, would you make Chris a psalm writer for his generation?
Wow.
And it was like lightning went through me, man. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And it was the marking moment in my life. It started a trajectory of I would go into college. I'd start and go to Tyler Junior College, then I'd go to Texas A&M, and I was getting involved in these Bible studies, and I would just start writing these songs. And I'd write songs from a Bible study, writing these little songs, and fast forward right into my college years, and I get to do a thing at Baylor. I'm asked to do a thing at Baylor, and I drive down from Texas A&M, and the guy speaking is Louis Giglio, and I was thinking, wait a minute. That's the guy from the tapes that was just a few years ago from the tapes. I said, Louis, I'm Chris, and I learned a lot from your stuff and from the stuff you are putting out. And
I think God works like that a lot. I think that as I look back on my career and so many people that I've talked to, and you've listened to the podcast, you've heard this too, that you can look back and really see how God put those things together, and you can feel like you're kind of wandering towards where you're supposed to go. And then God will just lay out these things and remind you, of what he told you, or a little. I call it following the breadcrumbs. It's like that you would run, you go do a thing with Louis, who was connected to you earlier, and you just go, okay, God, I think you might be, because we all doubt, don't we?
Oh yes,
we all doubt ourselves. Because what's the first thing that James told you? You have no idea what you're doing. That sticks with you, doesn't it?
Yes,
but it's the promise. Yeah. It's the promise
It-
after that gives you some gas in your tank to go, okay, well, let's just, then maybe there is something here.
exactly. And this in this connection, God looking at all of these things, how God was putting all these people in my life, and then I connect with Louis, and we start. He's like, I remember him saying, he said, "Hey man, what are these songs that you're playing?" And I said, "Well, I've been writing them." And he's like, "Man, I travel and speak everywhere I've not, and I hear all the same songs, but I haven't heard these songs. And what is this?" And I said, "Well," and he said, I think God's going to use your songs." And
Wow.
same thing James was saying to me. And he goes, "In fact, where I'd love for you to travel with me, and I'm going to go speak a lot of places. And why don't you come with me?" And so as a college student, I started traveling with Louis when he goes speak. And then he's like, "I feel like I have this vision that God's given me for college students to come together." And obviously, it wasn't called Passion at the time, but it was this. It was the early forming. And so, in 1997, that formed in Austin, Texas,
Yeah.
as the first gathering, and then what it's done from there. But I just look at all those things, and the funny thing is, tying the bow, Andy, on that story, years later, fast forward 30, 25 years, James, I stayed in touch with James and through all this time. And he's in Oklahoma. He calls me, and he's in ministry. He said, I don't think I'm going to be uh, ministry any longer. I feel like I'm going to walk into the political arena. It's time for me to walk into politics. And would you kind of pay?" He goes, "Would you kind of pay it back? I helped you, and now he goes, now would you do some concerts for me? And like, can we go to like I'm serious, bro." He goes, "Can we go to these churches and Walmarts and parking lots, and I put your name on stuff? Crowd will come, and then I can campaign for Oklahoma." And I was like, "Absolutely." So I do this. He wins. He becomes the U.S. representative of Oklahoma, and
Yeah.
then
I know who
now
you're
he's
talking
the
about.
senator, and now he's Senator James Langford.
Yep.
And that was the guy when I was 17. He put his hand on my
Incredible.
and said, "Would you, you're going to write songs one day." And he becomes senator, and right, like the next year he's senator, he leads a national prayer breakfast and asks me to come, and we lead it together. And it's me and the president and the vice president and James up there leading. And I'm thinking, if anybody knew this story, if anybody out there could know, when I was 17 years old, this guy looked at me and said, and was the first one who really believed in me that way. It was just amazing how God writes his stories.
Gosh, this is I love stories like this. These are my favorite types well, let's just call them career stories. They're God
Yeah,
stories, but
yeah,
it's your career.
yeah,
That, I think so many aspiring musicians, people that want to be artists,
yeah,
they want to sign that record deal. They want to go out on
yeah,
tour. They have this vision of, like, I'm going to do this, then I have to do this, have to meet this person, and then I have to get on. I have to get this opportunity, and that's how I
yeah.
succeed. And man, when God just says, "I'm going to use that guy," he does it. It's like
He does
I love hearing your story because you didn't ask for any of these things,
not, no,
not
no,
one of them. And
no.
God sent someone to you at the right
Yeah,
time to say,
yeah,
"Now you come over here, and now you come do this. Now I want you to do this." Man,
yes.
that just, I love that. That just gives me chills.
I can't believe it, man. When I still think about it, and doing doing it this many years now, as grateful as I've ever been, because I know how it all happened, and I never
Yeah.
tried to do it, would never dream of doing it. I feel like I'm the most average talented person that's probably ever played music. I don't, I really like, and just God he's just used these songs in such a special way, and I've never yeah, never looked for it. And it's just that thing. I think when I was a kid, I remember as an eighth grader, I remember being in a worship time with my youth group in a youth camp, and so moved by God. And I felt like my whole body was on fire this night. I don't know. I didn't know what was going on, especially in the tradition I grew up in. And I remember, Andy, so knowing God was speaking to me. I just all I knew as an eighth grader, and I ran out of the back of the auditorium, and camp counselors were trying to find me. All the things. I just in the middle of the worship, I took off running,
Hmm.
and I ran in a field under a tree and knelt under that tree. And I can take you to that same tree. And
Hmm.
I said, "God, I don't know what you're saying to me, but I know you're speaking to me." And so I remember saying that to him. I don't know what you're saying, but I know you're speaking to me. And um, sorry, man, I don't know why I get emotional about it. But I said, God, whatever you want for the rest of my life,
Hmm.
I'm here. And God is often, often taking me to that place. He's often taking me to that place. And just that heart that just, God, I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. And I never dreamed it'd be music. There was no music at that time, really. I never
Yeah.
dreamed it'd be, I mean, all I knew was Willie Nelson at that time of my life. But it's like, I never dreamed it'd be music. I just knew that um, I wanted to follow him. And I knew it was real, that God
Yeah.
was speaking to my heart.
Hmm. It's impossible for us to predict what God's going to do with us. It
Yeah.
just is. And I just appreciate your heart of that willingness. Again, I think it is rare. It is rare, unfortunately, to, for people just to say, God, what do you want to do next? What do you want to do? But I
Yeah.
think it's the best way to live. I think it's the best
Yeah.
way, think of what we would miss out on by charging after our own dreams full steam ahead.
Yes.
And instead of saying, okay, God, I trust you. What's the next step? What do you
Yes.
want me to do? Man, I just,
Yeah.
Chris, I just, the gift you've been to the church. I was just listening to Arriving today.
Oh
I
God.
went back to that record, just going. I listened to several of your records today, just kind of getting ready for this and taking myself back, to
Yeah.
being a worship leader. And I didn't start leading worship really until 2000. And that arriving record was, I mean, that's it. I mean, it's, how great is our God? And I mean, I don't have to say the song to you, indescribable. And, gosh, I'm gonna pull it up right here. Holy is the Lord, and your grace is enough, and unfailing love. And I mean, God used you at a time where the church was changing and God was changing the music industry. I mean, did
Yes.
you feel that? Like, when did Nashville come calling for you?
That's
Because
great.
that we talk about this on this podcast a lot, because it is a pivotal turn in the history of Christian music, where it went away from like a very highly produced. For him, we were spending a lot of money. It still blows my mind and kind of makes me a little sick to my stomach. How much
It was so,
how
but it
much
was so
how
good.
much we didn't recoup. You know what I'm talking about?
I love that, but
But
I
they
love
sounded great. We had all we had all these secular people working
it.
with
Sounds
us.
amazing.
But man, there was this turn though in the early 2000s, late 90s and 2000s with you and Matt Redmond and Delirious
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Sonic Flood, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there was this whole group that was starting to change the music industry. So you were like right at the beginning of that. When did
Yeah.
Nashville find out about Chris Tomlin?
Yeah. I would probably say probably 97, 98, 99, those late 90s, because that's when the Passion Conference started happening.
Yeah.
And I remember us recording these. We were just like, we should just record this conference. And I remember it was a guy named John Mays at
Yeah.
Star Song. It was Star Song
Yep.
at the day, came to the conference and said, I want to record this. And they started distributing it, and there was no radio play. There was no, at that time, not even really record label or anything like that. It was just this guy said, hey, let me take this. And I remember the day they came and said, hey man, you guys are selling more records than any of our artists, and y'all have there's no radio play, there's nothing, we're not marketing this. It's just this grassroots college thing that was happening. And these early songs, it was me and Matt Redman, where it's kind of the two of the guys leading that, and have passion and the songs. And I was hearing these songs come from same thing. I was hearing these songs come from England of Delirious and Matt, and then for us to connect together with passion was so special. But that is like it was those early days that was just this bubbling of this music that was forming. And I remember this like, hey, we should this is something that's really something, this is really happening. And so Andy, then the first years, so they're like, we signed with it was Star Song, I believe it was Star Song at that time. It had become Sparrow, EMI, or it's been a million things.
Yeah.
But and so we started our own label out of that called Six Steps, which is, if you
Yeah.
look at it, it says Six Steps on it. that
Mm-hmm.
Louis is like, let's just keep it in house and just do a partnership with these guys. And that was a really smart play. And it was really great because we had all their help, but we got to do what we really wanted to do and keep everything. So Passion and my personal albums and Redmond's personal albums and people like that were Nathan Christie with Watermark and all those
Mm-hmm.
things were under this kind of thing we were all in this one little family together. And it was some of the most prolific, some of the most special days of my life. It was a 20-year stretch for me. That run 97 to
Wow.
2017, and it was amazing. And I remember those early days of radio because I loved. I mean, I didn't get to say this yet, but I mean, I loved you guys. I was a huge fan of all of your albums, every
Oh,
one of
wow.
them. I went to Footloose and
Yeah.
Dallas,
Yeah. Remember those
and
days?
yes, and I was in there. I was in the crowd and all the things. But yeah, I would say, man, I would love to get songs played on the radio. And I remember I had this early song, Forever, and had this, or that was my early song, We Fall Down. And these are my early first songs. And I'd written
Mm-hmm.
those about right out of college, 96, 97 kind of thing. And so can we put these on the radio? And so we sent them the radio and every single time it'd be like, this is not Christian music. That's what we get back. This is not what we play. And they would say, we have a Sunday morning praise hour or a Sunday
Yeah.
morning praise show that we'll play your music on. And I would go to every one of these stations and I would sit there and knock on the doors, literally. And they would take me around and trying to break into what Christian radio was. And they just would, the pushback was unbelievable. And they would say, no, no, no. And I get played on every Sunday morning station. And it would just be the Sunday morning praise things. I was like, okay. And then it took 2 albums of that. And then the third record was arriving, and Indescribable is what opened the door. And it kind of had that, I guess, enough radio feel to it that they're like, we'll play this. And it just kind of opened the door for me.
Yeah.
And after that, it was the funniest thing. Like, hey, what else do you got? Man, we'd love to play your music. I'm like, I've been trying for
I
3
want to
years.
I want to go back to the statements you heard. This isn't Christian music.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
how short-sighted. And I mean, look, everybody's doing what everybody's doing what's in front of them, the best job they can do.
Yeah,
But at
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
time, thank God for John Mays and Eddie DeGarmo and
Yeah.
and the guys over at Sparrow that saw this and go, we better get on this train now
Yes.
because this is where Christian music is going.
Eddie became my publisher, as soon as we moved over and it was in Sparrow became the thing and Eddie became the publisher. And he's a big part of my story.
Yeah.
And all that thing. I didn't even know what publishing was. I remember when I got a call and this, I was it was leading worship at a little church in Houston. And they said, we would like to publish your song, We Fall Down. And I didn't know what that meant, honestly. And I was like, what does that mean? And all the things. And so I really had to think through that. And that was like and I moved in and I walked to Nashville. I flew into Nashville to have a meeting at that Sparrow building. And I remember the first person I walked in was Rick Kua.
Oh,
and
wow.
he's the first person I ever met in Nashville. He shook my hand, took me as the nicest guy, took me around, took me to dinner, took me to things, and then took me in this office. So this is what publishing is. This is what it means to publish a song. This is what we like to take your song, We Fall Down. We think this song is special, all things. So that was my first entry. And then so Eddie and John Mays, and then it became Peter York and Bill Hearn and all those people that just wrapped around my life. Besides, obviously, Louis and Shelley were my team, but the music side. So all that to say is they're the ones who are bringing my songs to radio and just pushback after pushback after pushback when I got to play it. And it was some early guys that took chances, some of them being on your show. Frank Reed, John Rivers. John Rivers somehow took a liking to me and is like, he was a cowboy anyway. So he's just like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And
John loved you. I remember John would talk about you all the time.
He just was so nice, so kind to me. And he's like, I want to play your music. I like your music. And he was someone who really helped me like break into the radio side of things.
Yeah. What was your first song that got re-recorded? You talk about publishing. Publishing is, if people don't understand the publishing world, that's where you're going to make a living. That's the long term. That's the long term mailbox money that makes the difference in your lifestyle, right? What was the first song that got recorded by other artists that you wrote?
Forever was Michael
Okay.
W. Smith off his worship album.
Hey, that's right. That's right.
It
Yeah,
was the opening song, and I
that's
could
right.
not believe it. And that album was
And that
so
record was huge.
huge. It was and he redid it and did two. And Forever was the opening song and the ending song with the kind of symphony thing. I was like so honored, but like that was the first one, and
Wow.
so it was that was. I felt for a long time in my music career for a long time, my songs were really way ahead of me, past me as a person, Chris Tomlin. It was the songs that had gone way ahead, and I felt like for many years I called it chasing my songs around because I would
Huh.
get asked to do these festivals, and they're like, "Hey, um, you do that Michael W. Smith song, right? Forever."
Yeah, I can do that song. I think I know that one.
Yeah. And they're like, and it's like, yeah, I can do that. And so, and so it was a lot of that at the early days. My as a name had not caught up to the songs. And that's what I loved. I mean, looking back, I mean, the songs have been the star of the show for me. It's been way above ahead of me and gone way ahead of me. And so it took those years to kind of catch up as an artist. Being an artist has always been interesting to me. Because it was never started from that place of like
Yeah.
I want to be an artist. It was just I was writing songs in my Bible study and then turned into this Bible study college thing. It was called Breakaway. Then it turned into Passion. These college things, and it was just literally those grassroots church music, this new music that was hitting the church in a special way, and then it became oh my gosh, now I'm in CCM. I'm in what I always look to you and Stephen Curtis Chapman and Michael, and that is just I
Yeah.
mean that was a whole other
It
world to me.
happens so fast, doesn't it? It's like you
Yeah.
you turn around and go, wait, how did we get here? What are we even doing here? How do these people know my name? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It is
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how great is our God? Because man, I just
Mm.
before we started, I just took a peek at CCLI, which I rarely do. But I was like, I wanted to see where how great is our God is after all these years, and it's like at number 11 on CC, and
I
it
didn't
said
know
it
that.
just fell 4 slots. I mean, which means it was at number 7 or 8, right? I mean, it's like the life of that song has been incredible, and I got to meet Jesse Reeves for the first time
Yeah, you
just a
did.
couple of years ago. And I
Amazing.
was like, why have I not known you my whole life? I love that guy.
It's crazy.
Um, he's amazing. And his name might be on more songs
Yeah.
and on CCLI than you just people who sing, who go to church every weekend, they're not going to know his name, but they're singing his songs that he's been a part
Yeah.
of. The reason I bring up Jesse because I know he's a co-writer on that. Did you know that was special at the time?
At the very beginning, no. And I can tell you exactly where I was. I was in Austin, Texas. I was planting a church called Austin Stone.
Yeah.
And, and when I moved there, I moved there with my buddy Matt Carter, who was the pastor of the church, to plant that church. And I was in an apartment there in Austin, and I literally had my Bible open, and I was reading Psalm 104, and it says, "You, O Lord, are very great. You're clothed with splendor and majesty. You wrap yourself in light as a garment." All these beautiful words of praise that David would write. And I don't know how it happens, and I think most songwriters don't either. But it's like I just grab my guitar and I'm just looking at that. It's kind of having a devotion time. And out of you, O Lord, are very great. Somehow, how great is our God? I just start simply singing that chorus as you hear it today. I'm just singing over and over and over. And um, I just, in my mind, when I write songs, I imagine my buddy Ed Cash, who produced most of my records, he would always say it's like you have the arena in your head all the times. I'm
Yeah.
always thinking, I'm always hearing the people
Mm-hmm.
sing. And so I'm like, okay, how would this sound with people singing it? And so I'm acting like this is honest truth. I'm acting like I'm leading it to people and I'm just writing it. I never thought Sing With Me and all that would be in that song because it was a little spontaneous moment of just writing it. But anyway, the chorus happened, and then and Jesse was in my band. Jesse finally formed a band. Jesse became a band member, and so we would write our songs together. So I brought the idea to him. We wrote verses that have never seen the light of day. Could never find the right verse for it. And then finally, I just went back to that song that it started in the splendor of a king. And it's like, it was clothed in majesty and splendor, clothed in majesty. And he wrapped himself in light as a garment. He wraps himself in light. I just was singing the song, and that it just all kind of came. I was like, okay, I think that's special. And I get to, it's time to make the album, which became Arriving, which tells you I don't know how to name albums. If I'd have known how great is our God, it would have been that big. I'd have named the album How Great Is Our God. But so I had no idea. And that'll tell you how much I didn't know the song, because I would have named it that. But I'm making this album. I want to make this album, in my A&R guy, who is still the person that's been with me from the start, Brad O'Donnell, who now is run. He was in the early days. He said, "Hey, I want you to meet this Ed Cash. I think y'all should do music together." And he played me some of his music. I was like, I really love this music. And so I called Ed, and I was like, would you produce my music? And he said, no. he said, he goes, it's worship music. I was like, yeah. And he said, yeah, Brad told me you're going to call. I was like, well, I'm just not interested in that kind of music. And I was like, really? Because I think it's subpar. I don't think it's that good. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I was like, well, I don't know.
Was he wrong? He wasn't wrong. I mean, for worship at the time. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Not your music, not saying your music was subpar, but worship at the time was not very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes, I sit there in church and I'm thinking, these aren't well-written songs. I was like, okay. And you're going to love this. Because I don't know why on the phone. I said, well, would you just pray about it at least? And can I call you back in like a week? And I don't know why I was persistent, but I was like, yeah. He said, yeah. So I'll call him back in a week. And he said, man, I'm so glad you called. He said, I went to bed and I was telling my wife about our conversation about meeting you. And she told me, how dare you curse what God has kissed? And he said, it knocked me on my face. Wow. He goes, all my pride, all my ego, my songs and my writing. He goes, it just knocked me. He goes, I've always just thought that music was too simple and stuff like that. And he said, I'd love to meet with you. So I said, tell that story. He said, I have this song, How Great Is Our God. And I come in, the very first thing I said, well, I have this song. I'd love to play it for you. And I remember sitting in his studio, and I played How Great Is Our God, first verse, chorus, second verse, chorus. And this is how much I didn't really, he still, in that day, didn't even still know about songwriting. And he said, well, that's really, he goes, I think that's pretty good. He was just that straight. He goes, I think it's pretty good, but it just doesn't sound finished to me. I was like, what do you mean? Well, it's not finished. I thought that's a pretty good song. He said, no. He goes, when you're singing that, you were just singing that, I just hear something completely different. And he has his guitar on the back wall, and he just picks his guitar up. I'll never forget, and just grabs it and goes, I didn't know he could play or sing. All I heard is producing the song, the records he produced. I barely met him. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, that is the most beautiful thing. And it just all came right there. And I think in 15 minutes, the very first thing we ever met and did together was this song. And then he would go on for the next 20 years of my life to produce. And we wrote almost all our songs together, from At the Cross to Angel Army. So I could go down the list. And like all the songs, but it all started right there with How Great Is Our God. So when he asked me that question, that's the story of that song. And then I remember playing it at Passion. We were playing a Passion conference. And I said, I'm just going to try it. And walked out there. And I walked off stage, and I remember Louis grabbed me and said, you're going to sing that song for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And I was just like, I couldn't. And so thinking about it even today, I'll end the concert with it tonight, that was 25 years ago. And, I'm thinking, my goodness, when I wrote this, when it started coming. And so that's just crazy to me. And, wow. And so I'm just so grateful for that song, because that really changed everything. That changed my whole life. And it was one of those songs that transcended cultures. It transcended generations. It was translated in so many languages. I did a world tour. We did 18 countries with Passion, this world tour and I learned it in every language every night. I would try to learn it in Japanese. I would learn it in Afrikaans. I would learn it, and we would play it, and I would sing the chorus. I would botch 18 languages around the world for sure. I'd botch every language, but as soon as I would start it in that language, we'd just start to sing the chorus in whatever language. Mm. and it was just the whole place would change. And I was like, Lord, how do you know? And I always thought that house. I mean, that song does not get any more simple than just that little phrase, and it's not, the melody's not that great. And it's just like, but I don't know, God just touched it in such a special way.
There's a great book, I've mentioned it on the podcast a few times, called Imagine Heaven by John Burke. And I encourage
Mm,
every musician and artist to read it because it just paints such a beautiful picture of what people bring back with near death experiences of what heaven will be
mm,
like. Obviously, it's just, we're never going to fully understand until we get there. But
yeah.
music is such a big part of the stories that people have when they have these near death experiences and they visit heaven. And there's one really beautiful story that someone tells about they heard everyone singing, all the great multitude singing in all different languages at the same time, and it made sense. Like it actually worked to where, when
Wow.
you talk about that, singing "How Great Is Our God" in all these different languages, that I think one day, I believe this. I think Mark Harris is the one that told me this. I'll credit him for saying it. Is that these songs are just on loan from God? That they're just there. He's deposited them within us. I think about James Langford telling you, putting his hand on it, saying you're going to be a psalmist, and you're gonna write songs for the world to sing. And those songs, I have to believe those songs are God breathed. And God said, I want a song, I want this to be said for this season. Or, ever get once in a while, here's a song that we're going to sing forever. And I
Mm.
do believe How Great Is Our God is one of those. It just keeps coming up, you know? I
It
mean,
just
that's why it's
it's
got to be so high on CCLI, is that it's one of those songs that it's not just a great song and a God breathed song, but it's you can tag it with a thousand different worship songs, you know?
yeah, yeah. This is simple, yeah, and it just is that it was one of those songs where I found Andy when I found the songs that are the songs of. I always say there's kind of two songs, two lanes when it comes to worship. There's transcendence and deliverance, and what I mean by that is there's most of the songs are songs of deliverance of like and I think the Psalms are filled with those. Help me, Lord. Amazing Grace is one of those.
Mm,
I need your grace. Lord, I need you. Those like those worship songs of like just crying out to God. And then there's those songs of holy, 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 right? That are just like nothing about us in it. And it's just
yeah.
about the majesty and greatness of God. Those songs change the room
Mm,
every time. And I I feel like How Great Is Our God is a little bit like that. It's not about us really. It just points the whole place to the greatness of God. And I've tried, I've always shoot for those songs and try to find those songs because they change the atmosphere of the place every time because it reminds us of the greater story that we're in.
mm,
It reminds us, it lifts our eyes off ourselves. I mean, I'm just like anybody else. I can be a me monster and get in my world and just me, 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 me. And I mean, it just takes your eyes off of it and just like, whoa, I'm a part of this kingdom down here is so small, and I'm a part of such a greater kingdom, such a greater story. And that's what I love about those songs like that.
I had Matt Rebin on a few episodes ago, and
Really.
he, I asked him this question. I want to ask you the same thing. What's left to write? I mean, after thousands of years of
Mm.
Christianity and music being such a huge part of the church, what else is left to say? Do you ever get to a point where you go, I think I've
Yeah.
written all the worship songs I'm going to write?
Every time I finish a record, I just put out this album, "The King is Still the King," and it's my 18th album, which is
Wow.
insane, which I can't believe. And I feel every time I feel, I especially feel it right now. I don't think I have anything else. I think I'm done. And I think every time, but God he just pours more in the tank. And it's that psalm. He gave us a new song, put a new song on my lips, put a new song on my mouth, hymn of praise. And I think as long as you're breathing, and especially as you and I are wired that way, we're wired in the music way. It's just like that's
Yeah.
the way I express myself. And it doesn't. I think it's going to stop, but it doesn't. And you know, and I think it's Revelation 13 or 15. I don't want to be misquoted, but it's one of those. It says, and they talks about heaven. It says they sang the song of Moses and the Lamb.
Mm,
And it reminded me when I saw that, it was like, it's like, wow, it's the old song and the new song. It's like even in heaven, it's like they sung this song of Moses, and it's like it's the whole thing, and there's always there's kind of the new song as well. In fact, that little line started, that verse is what started Holy Forever. When we wrote that song, I said I want to write a song around that, and so the original lyric was 1,000 generations falling down in worship to sing the song of Moses and the Lamb.
Oh,
And
wow.
thank goodness we changed it to ages. But they started that idea of just the song of that heaven song, right? You said that song of heaven. There is a song of heaven that we know the lyric. It says, "Day and night they never stop saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty." That is the song. That is the song of heaven. That's
Yeah.
the eternal song of heaven. And so I wanted to try to capture that in a song, but what's left to write, it's always I don't know what's coming next, but it just feels like it somehow it always does.
And Holy Forever is number one on CCLI, by the way. Congratulations.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm glad you don't look at the charts. I mean, that's
I
great.
don't.
You're just like, yeah, they're up there. They're up there somewhere.
I try not to, because man, that stuff messes with me. That's why I'm not on socials. I don't have any of that because I'm a very weak when it comes to that world, and I just get taken out. And so I just like don't mess with it. I have a team that does that. Thank God I have a team that does that, and I just say I'd like to post this. Please put this up there. But yeah, that's another podcast.
Hey, I enjoyed your country stuff. Like, walk me through that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm at a point in my life where I'd like to do some different things, musically, and there's some maybe some things on the horizon. We won't talk about that, but I do think God says, yeah, you want to go do that? Go do it. Go have fun. There's a really fascinating idea in the Old Testament that I hadn't realized until maybe just a couple years ago, as I was reading through the Bible again. When the Israelites would bring their sacrifices to the temple, and they'd bring their animals, and they'd be butchered and given to the priests, but the priests would direct, in many of these passages, the priests were to direct the families that brought the sacrifices to sit around a table, and they got to enjoy part of that sacrifice.
Yeah.
They didn't just bring their animals and they were gone and they went back home. They actually got to partake in part of the sacrifice. And I thought, how good is that? I felt like God speaking to me saying,
wow,
I want you to enjoy what you're doing. You're doing this for me, and it's a job. But I also want you to have fun and enjoy what you're doing. So if you want to go do some different things, go enjoy. This is why I gave you this gift. Do you feel like that's kind of what the country thing was for you?
100%. I mean, it was fun. It was full circle. We started out talking about where it all came from me. Music came from me. What I loved as a kid was that. And my dad, he would take me to the record store, and anytime Alabama came out with a new album, that's all I wanted. That's all I cared about. And so I loved that music. It was in me as a growing up in East Texas. It was in me. And so I've always loved that music, but I never have dreamed of being in it. I've never, and it literally was not something. I'm glad you asked me, because I love telling the story, because again, it was something I was not looking for. I started doing this thing called Good Friday Nashville when I moved there, and I started on Good Friday putting this gathering together. And I thought, every night I'd love to have, every Good Friday, I'd love to have just some artist that no one sees coming join me, like a special guest. I'm not going to announce them. It's going to be a surprise. And I'd love for it, since we're in Nashville, I'd love to be somebody from country that is of faith, but might surprise people, that they're like, what? That guy's on my team? What do you mean? Kind of thing. Yeah. And just come up and sing a song, and just like people are like, what is happening right now? And so we've had those moments. Like this past Good Friday, I was like, hey, would you welcome my buddy Luke Bryan? And Luke Bryan looks up, and just people are like, what is happening right now? And Lainey Wilson joined me, and like we're doing all these things. But one of the first years, I said I wanted Thomas Rhett, and so I didn't know Thomas, and so I wrote I wrote an email to his manager, found his manager's, literally went online, found the manager's email, and wrote a letter, email. And I never got to him, as a good manager does. I mean, I'm sure there's like, I don't know who this is, and didn't even bother Thomas with it. I get to the event. I get to the Good Friday Nashville. That day, I'm in sound check at Bridgestone Arena. I'm doing sound check, and I finished sound check, and my road manager walks up to me. He says, "Hey, Thomas Rhett is in the back, and he wants to talk to you. He wants to meet you." And I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, he's in your green room." I was like, "What?" And I'm walking off stage, and like I'm walking, I was like, "Thomas." He's like, "Chris." He goes, "Man, I've been rehearsing for my tour, and I heard your voice over the PA, and I just wanted to come tell you how much influence your songs have been in my whole life, my whole journey.
Wow.
Like your songs have been." And I'm just like, "Bro, you're not going to believe this, but I sent you I sent you a letter trying to get you to play this very night." And he's like, "You
Incredible.
did?" I was like, "You did?" He goes, "Yes, I did." And he goes, "Well, I never got that." I was like, "Well, I figured." And so he's like, "Well, we should write some songs together." And so he gives me his number. The next day, he sends me an idea. Let's start working on this. And so that next week, I go on our family vacation down to the beach in Florida, and I go into a gym to work out. And there's only one other person in the gym, and it's Tyler Hubbard at Florida Georgia line. And I'm just
Wow.
like, I recognize the guy. I know there's no way he's going to know me. But I woke up and I said, "Hey, Tyler, I know who you are. I'm Chris Tomlin." He goes, I'm honest to God. He goes, you're Chris Tomlin." I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Bro, he just puts his hands. He goes, this is full circle in my life. This is full circle in my life." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, when I was in eighth grade, I wanted to be you." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "I want to be a worship leader." And he goes, "I can take you to the very place. When I graduated high school, I can take you to the very seat. And in that arena, I was at this conference called Passion. I was a college student, and
Wow.
you led, and that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life." And I got to college and met Brian, and we started this little duo, and we started leading worship on Wednesday nights. And then the country thing happened, so we formed this Florida Georgia line, this band Florida Georgia line, and it got huge. It just went crazy, and life went crazy, and fame and all things. And my life went off the rails, and God's just been speaking to me and bringing me back to Him. And I walk in this gym, and you're standing here. I know this is God, man. This is God. He goes, "We're supposed to do
Wow.
something, man. We're supposed to do something." And this is a week from Thomas, and I'm just like, "What is happening?" And
Breadcrumbs. Yeah.
there you go. And so he gave me his cell, and I gave him my cell, and I thought that was an amazing meeting. Went home to my wife, and I thought, "There's no way I'll hear from him again." But that was crazy. And then the next morning, he's like, he goes, "Let's write some songs." He goes, "You got this afternoon available? You want to come over?" And I was like, "Sure." And he was he was down the same place I was. And I was like, "Well," and so we started working on songs. And Andy, we started writing these songs, had so much fun, and started bringing in all these friends who in the country world who have this faith that want to express that side of their life,
Yeah.
in their music. And so it was so organic that it was we just made demos of songs, and what you hear is pretty much those demos and from that Chris Tomlin and Friends album. And we just had fun and thought when we went to put it out and make the record, like, how does this even come out? Because who's the artist? I mean, there was not a in there. And so Tyler was so cool. And Thomas are like, "Hey, you be the main guy. We'll just bring all around it. We'll come, and then we'll figure out how to make it work." And then it was, and it so became what it became. And it was such a fun little moment. And it was right during COVID and when it came out. And obviously we would have never known that. And all my friends and everybody, managers, were calling my managers like, "You guys are geniuses putting this out at this time. This was like the most brilliant idea ever." And we're just thinking, if people only knew, we weren't even, this was not, this was just, again, just the breadcrumbs, God putting things
Mm.
together, wasn't even trying, you know? So it was so fun. And it was a dream for me getting to get in the rooms with those guys and
Yeah.
write those a little bit different kind of songs than I would ever write when you hear those songs. And man, I mean, as a songwriter and getting with, so they would bring in their country songwriters who would write for them. I was like, well, I got to step it up. These guys are a whole other level of lyric writing. It's like, my,
That's true. My friend Brian White, just,
yeah,
just thinking about the writing rooms that guy's in and
yes,
the level of songwriting that goes into, this kind of stuff is, I think it's got to be it's almost like going to school.
it is going to school. I was floored. I was instantly like, okay, I got to come a little bit more ready because
Well,
they're
and
like,
because you're writing now, you're going to write in a different direction than you've
yes,
been doing for most of your career. Did you have some songs already that were kind of maybe
I
starting
had a
places for these
yes,
country songs?
yeah, I had ideas. And if you go listen to Chris Tomlin and Friends, there's a song on there called "Be the Moon," and that was the
Yeah.
first idea. And I had this idea of just like, well, I said, if we're going to do this, I've been carrying this idea for a while. This feels like the perfect idea to bring these worlds together, because I was in an interview once. It was a very passive aggressive interviewer, and they were trying to, like, I could tell they were trying to corner me, and they were like, "Hey, it was not a faith or like magazine or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was from, but they were like, "Hey, so you say you are a Christian artist and it's about God, but we went to your concert and I don't know, it seems to be about you because I mean the lights are on you and people, you're signing autographs, you're taking pictures with people and people want to take pictures with you and you seem to sign autographs and but you say it's about God, so how do you reconcile that?" And I was like, okay. And it was just like a download from. It was one of those moments where I said, well, I think my job is to be the moon. And I said, the moon has no light on itself of itself. It just reflects a greater light. And I said, that's what I'm doing. And that's what I try to do. I'm not saying I have any light, but I'm just saying if you get, when the moon gets in the right place, it shines a light in the dark. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what our faith is. I said, that's what faith is. That's what this whole thing is about. And so I shared that with the songwriters instantly. And they were like, I mean, they just like went to town. And so
like, let's go.
Yeah. So that was fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great, man. What is there that you haven't done? I mean, let's just talk about that for a second. I mean, we all have dreams. I have a similar story as you. I had a pastor of traveling evangelist when I was at college at Oklahoma State. Lay his before I got into truth. Heard me sing. I sang the offertory, and he came up and
Yeah.
laid his hand on me and brought me back on stage and said, "Hey, the Lord showed me you're going to sing before great multitudes." And
Really?
it's like one of those things where I was like, well, how do I do that? Like, I don't know how to do that. And it was like maybe a week later that Roger
Wow.
Breland called me and asked me to be a part of Truth. And,
Wow.
you have these
Wow.
people. Yeah. So, well, I lost my train of thought here.
Well, I didn't know. I don't think I've heard you share that before. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
so similar to mine.
Well, yeah. So that's why I'm always fascinated when somebody comes up and, you're like, I have a gift and I want to do this, but I don't know how. I don't even know if I'm that good.
Yeah.
But then someone who doesn't even know you comes
Yeah.
up and says that about you, and you can feel it. Like I felt you talk about, the fire of God, this
Yeah.
electricity went through. Same thing with me,
Yeah.
and I could see it. I could see just this split second glimpse of it.
Wow.
Um, but I know what I was going to ask you. But I remember I still had saw things in that split second that haven't come to pass yet,
Mm,
and that's something that keeps me going. They go,
yeah.
okay, you're not done yet. You got
Yeah.
a few more things to do because this vision hasn't been fulfilled. Now, maybe it's a other side of heaven vision. I don't know. It could be because I
Yeah.
think I'm way off track here. Sorry, but
No.
I think what we do on earth is what we'll do in heaven. On earth is in heaven. I think that you and
Wow.
I will continue to lead the praises of the Lord. I think that we'll be involved in music. I think we'll probably do other things too. But I think this is who God created us to be, not just for this life, but for eternity.
Yeah.
Are there any things that you think, because I can go through your bio and, click off all the things with you that you've done. Is there anything you
Yeah.
haven't done? Is anything is there any place you haven't gone and saying that you're like, I would like to do that before my time on earth is over?
Instantly, what comes to mind is more international
Yeah.
things. That's what instantly comes to mind. But I got a taste of that when I've run around the world, and once you get a taste of that, it's like it's just the hunger. I mean, just I can just right now going back to the field in Uganda and playing, and people have come there, literally come there for days, have been coming for days to come to
Wow.
that. And it was 40,000 people showed up at this field, and I had literally people had, it's not cliche, many families had walked for a couple days, and they get there and they say, and you're going to play a 2 hour set. They're like, no. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? I'll never forget when we finished. They're like, no, no, boys. And we played, I think I mean, 4 or 5 hours probably played. I mean, they're just like, just want anything, they're just there. There's nowhere to go. They don't know where to go. It's not like us. It's like, okay, we got 90 minutes. We're out. It's like, and so that I get a taste of that. You're like, man, that's a bit of heaven. And, in the, just in the Philippines and Brazil. I can think of those places where I've gotten to play that I want to get back to and have more opportunities and bring my family to see that. I've got 3 little girls now, and to see that and to them to experience that with me, because I've gotten to taste it, but I want to taste more of that, because it's just that there's a different hunger and longing for that we don't understand, and we won't ever understand, because we've been so blessed and have so many things in this Western world that we have that's just not there. And that this just, you see, it's a cliche, but when kind of all you got's God, it's just a different world.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's so good for all of us to get out of the comfort of America and get to places that are, I mean, they're literally living day to day.
Yes.
And especially where there's religious persecution.
Yes.
And you ask yourself, how would I stand up under this? If my life was on the line for speaking the name of Jesus, what would I do?
Yeah. 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 Okay. Speaking of persecution, can I tell you my favorite story that's ever happened?
Yes,
to me?
please.
That's ever happened to me with music, with song. It was a couple years ago. A few years ago, I was coming into at this conference for Bible translation, and it was in Colorado Springs, and I was coming to do a couple songs, and I was coming in like, it's been a 3 or 4 day conference, and I'm coming in like day 3, something like that. So I'm coming in mid conference, and I walk into the lobby of this hotel, and I'm standing with my guitar, and a friend of mine is in the lobby with another guy, and he says, "Oh my gosh, Chris, I'm so glad you just walked in. This is perfect timing." Comes up and he introduces this guy. He goes, "This brother just spoke, and he's on his way back home, but I wish you would have been here to hear him speak." He goes, "I'm not sure anything else needs to be said, but after he spoke, but I wanted you to meet him." And he starts sharing his story. He said, "Chris, will you share a little bit of your story with Chris?" And it's this, and he begins to tell me. He said he's a pastor from Syria, and
Oh, wow.
that's kind of all you need to know, right? I thought that's the resume right there to me. And a pastor from Syria, and he said, "I've come over here to share about Bible translation, the importance of it." And said, he goes, "Well, tell Chris your story." And he's telling me in broken English, and he's talking to me, and he says, he said, "Jesus started to come to me in dreams." And he said, "I was in my family is Islamic, my nation's Islamic, my village is Islamic, everything, my family." He said, "But Jesus would come to me in dreams every night. And at the end of the dream, he would say, 'Follow me.'" And he said, this one morning I woke up, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to follow you." And I told Jesus, "I'm going to follow you." I knew it was Jesus. He goes, "Even though I'd never been taught about Jesus, I knew it was him in my dreams," which is such a beautiful statement anyway. He said, so I told my family. He goes, "Chris, I lost my family. I lost my job. I lost everything." And he said, "But I knew that this was what I was supposed to do." He said, "So much so, my brothers had 2 brothers. My brother said, you've embarrassed the family. This is this can't happen in our family, and you have to renounce this Jesus. This is heresy and all the things of our faith." And he said, "If you don't, we're going to take your life in the public square of the village this Friday." He said, "This coming Friday, we are going to," and they, I won't get into it on this podcast, but they told him what they were going to do. He said, "We don't want to do that, but this is what we have to do according to our teaching. You've done this to our family." He said, and this is my own brother was calling me. He goes, and every day he called me and said, "Would you renounce Jesus today?" I said, "No." And as he goes, "Well, on Friday, this is coming." And he goes, and I knew, the guy's talking to me. He goes, "And I knew, Chris, I just knew that whatever came, that's what was going to come. If I was going to," I goes, "but I knew Jesus was real, and I knew I was going to follow him if it was my last day on Friday or not." And, you're talking to these people, and you and I feel the same thing. I mean, I'm feeling everything you would be feeling at that moment. And he said, he said Thursday night came, and I was just praying, and he said, "My brother passed away in his sleep on Thursday night."
Wow.
On that Thursday night. And I woke up that Friday, and I thought, I'm supposed to build a church here in Syria. And he said, so I've been building this little house church, and every day, he said, I don't know if it's my last day or not, but every day I just go out and I share my faith, tell people about Jesus. And I'm just thinking, as he's talking, he's just telling me about miracle after miracle, and I was thinking, we're talking about the same message, and yet people buy a ticket, and I'm on a bus, and they come to my concerts, and they're paying to come see me do this. And he's sharing the same message that he might lose his life, you know, for every day. And it's just that moment of clarity. It's like, man, wow, would I have the same? Would that be the same for me if I was in the same situation? And then my friend, where I'm starting to think all this, my friend interjects. He goes, "Hey," looks at that pastor. He says, "Hey, have you ever heard of Christian music?" And I was asking what a terrible question right now. But he's like, "What?" Here goes. And the pastor looked at him and looked at me and said, "No, I've never heard of it." And my friend kind of winks at me, and we just keep talking. He keeps talking, and he said, "Wait a minute. I do know one song." He goes, "I have one song on my." He goes, "There's one song on my phone that I sing every morning." He goes, "It's my song of faith. That when I go out to share it, this is what I sing." And he's looking around at me, Andy, and he said, the chorus, the lyric says, "I know who goes before me. I know who stands behind. The God of angel armies is always by my side."
Wow. Wow.
And just like now, I mean, tears are coming down my face. And I'm sure he's like, doesn't know why, And he said, "The God who reigns forever, he's a friend of mine. The God of angel armies is always by my side." He goes, "This is my song." And I mean, I'm crying. And my friend goes, "Do you know who wrote that song?" And he said, "No." He goes, "Well, you're looking at him." And he comes and grabs me and just starts shaking me, man. Just like, he goes, "You have no idea, brother. This is my song of faith." And and I'm crying. He's crying now, and I'm just like, "What is going on?" And he goes, "Do you want to hear it in Arabic?" And I was like,
Yes. Yes,
He
please.
pulls out his phone in the lobby, and he pulls out the phone. And he shows me he has one song, and he plays it, and it's somebody singing that song in Arabic. And I was just like, just God's kindness, right? That I would just walk in. I just got there. He was just leaving. I would never see this brother again. He was just leaving back to Syria. The breadcrumbs, right? That God would just like, "I'm going to put this for both of y'all," and together. I will never sing that song again without thinking of him, and just thinking of the people who that is true. That is so true. That's what they're, people all around the world that they they know that that's their reality. They're surrounded by these armies of angels, right, that are going with them and protecting them and before them and beside them and all the things. And so I just want to share that story. Maybe it encourages somebody who's listening that is going through it or just trying to is in that place maybe.
Well, that's incredible. We're all just doing what God's called us to do. I mean, somebody who's listening to this, I know I've been guilty of this too, looking at people who have written big songs or gotten those, their songs have gone around the world and been sung for forever, to go, well, God, I would have liked to have done that. And I just hear God
Mm.
whisper to me, go, "You're doing exactly what I created you to do.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. This is what I have Chris doing. This is what I have Matt doing. This is what I
Hmm.
have Jesse doing. This is
Yeah.
what I have Ed doing. This is
Yeah.
what I have John Mays doing. This
Yeah.
is what this is what I have this pastor in Syria doing. I didn't call you all to do the same things.
Yeah.
Just do what I've called you to do. And then when we get to heaven, we're going to see just how important everybody's part was all the way down. And, obviously, man, we sing your songs. Everybody sings your songs every week in church. They're all a part of our life, but I love how you acknowledge that they're just gifts that God gives you, and you don't know where they're going to go, what they're going to do. And, I just want to encourage you, just artist to artist, friend to friend, there's more. Just keep going.
Thank you,
I
brother.
love that you've got a new record out with a bunch of new songs, and
Yeah.
I just don't think with God it ever ends. And I don't even
That's,
think in eternity we can't. There's no way. If he's God, we'll never see the end of him. And if we don't see the end of him, that means we'll never run out of things to wow about. I don't remember which theologian it was, talked about the angels. You talk about holy forever and the
Mhm.
angels circling the throne. the cherubim and crying day and night for eternity. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And he asked the question, what are those angels seeing that make them shout and cry with exclamation, the same thing day and night for eternity? He said, because I believe every time they circle the throne of God, they see something new and wonderful about it, and they didn't see the last time.
My goodness.
And, you know,
My goodness.
I just want us as a community of artists and musicians to never grow tired of finding the next thing to do for God, because
That's right.
I believe the well's endless. I don't believe the well will ever run dry.
No, it won't. It won't. And what a privilege, right? It is that God has given us to help people connect with Him. You know, pray every night that people would just have an encounter with God, that people would, that they would sense His presence, right, in these songs, and that we get to do that. And just, yes, so grateful, so grateful.
How good was that? I mean, I left so many questions on the table, so many things we didn't get to, which means we'll just have to have Chris back on another episode. Hey, thanks for joining me today for the podcast. Make sure to leave me a 5-star review, write something nice about the show, and I'll see you next week with another incredible guest right here on the 1 Degree of Andy podcast.
Access more